Good morning, my friends, and welcome again to another show of Altitude. The topic of this week is about transitions. And I have chosen this topic because I have found in many of you that you are ready to make a jump between your normal way of perception, the dual perception, and the enlightened perception. Sometimes we don't recognize when we are ready in those transitions, and we only see it as change. So one of the things I want to clarify today is the difference between the change and a transition. Another thing that we'll be doing today is to lay out the 3 basic steps that you go through these transitions, so you can have a better grounded when you're passing through it and a better map of what is required from you and how not to go back into your habits. And the third stage of this show is quite exciting. I am inviting Annie Janina Olivier from Let's Talk to join us, and an expert in transition, a coach transition, and see what input she can have in our program today. So I would like to just clarify first that we are not talking about changes, we're talking about transitions. Changes is when you change your sofa from one part of your living room to another part of the living room. It makes a sense of refreshment, but it's not radical. Transition, what we're talking here today, is about that you completely live out of the apartment or move out of the country or born from the womb of your mother, from the amphibious environment to be a mammal, from to be a human in the dual plane, dealing with the normal way of living, and the transition into your step of enlightenment. So if we clarify that we are in constant change, and that is inevitable, life will offer us and continuously offer us that. And the other one is transition, big, huge steps of perception, where you are actually relocating yourself within and without. So that's the first thing that we can clarify. The second part is to see that there are different stages where people go through in these transitions, and there are models that we can follow in order to have those transitions much easier. So in this moment, I want to invite Annie from Let's Talk, which so luckily I have been in contact with, and ask her, well, first, if she can talk a little bit about herself and what exactly she supports these transitions. So, Annie, welcome to Altitude, and I'm so happy that you have agreed. And see how you are seeing in your work this kind of transitions in life.
Hello. Thank you very much for having me. Just to clarify, what was the question? You wanted to know how I got into transition myself in this field?
What is it that you are seeing in people when they offer these transitions? What is usually how they arrive to you, and what is it that you support them with?
Actually, it's very interesting. It started with my own journey of transitioning from a specific career that I was in prior to coaching, which was technology, architectural technology, and I was going through the process myself, and I always found that to get the answers, to get from point A to point B wasn't always easy, and as I kept working with individuals, they were constantly living, like you're saying, big changes, not just small changes, but big changes that impacted their lives. And I noticed they constantly had the same questions, and those questions was, how do I do it? I know that I have to change. I know that I have to work through something, but I don't know how to do it. And so this is where I found I could really provide an additional service in just clarifying those steps for them. And either whether it be family-related transitions, work-related transitions, things that I could see people evolve in. And this is kind of where I worked at developing my skills in.
So people come already knowing that, okay, I am in a transition. That's something that is really one of the first stages in the transition, is to recognize that, okay, this is not a change, this is a major transition in my life. So it's to recognize that I am in transition. That's one of the first thing. And then you naturally are obliged to unfinish or finish all the things that it was of how we conceive ourselves to be, like in your case, where professional transition, where you decide, okay, no, this is not anymore. Then I have to completely close all my connections to that world or to that life, and therefore I can have a more space for that transition. Am I right in that?
Yes, but what I found interesting is that it's happening on a subconscious level, where subconsciously, intuitively, they know that they have that shift, that they want to disconnect, they want to do the change, but consciously in their everyday life, they have a tendency to just have that feeling of, this isn't right, I need to do something, but where do I go next? So there is that intuition there, definitely.
Right. So it's something that, and hopefully with this show, people get more aware of, okay, I can or need to bring that transition forward from my subconscious into the conscious, so I can supply myself with the appropriate tools or skills that I need in order to make my next step. So that's something that I also found in people, that they don't recognize when they are in the transition period. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, do you supply skills? Or what kind of skills you supply? How you approach when I come to you and say, well, I am in transition and I need your help? How do you support them?
It varies by client, depending on what they're looking at transitioning into, but we actually have our 3-step process that we address with the client. When we are clear that they know they want to transition and they want to move from, let's say, point A to point Z, that's the best way to describe it, because it's not just one step to get through it. Let's say I'm in my case, I was in career of the architectural world, and I knew I wanted to change into something else, but I wasn't 100% sure. First step that we clarified with them was, what is that next step? What's your clear vision? So we understood exactly what the client was looking at achieving. So we wanted to clarify their goal. So if you want to get to step Z, what does step Z look like? So visualize it, see yourself there. What will you have when you're there? How will you know you're there? And then once the client is clear, okay, I know that I want to make a change, And now I know this change. In my case, my story was the coaching world. What I wanted to do, I knew the coaching was the industry. So then the next step was how do I get there? So I clarified easy breakdown steps of becoming a coach. What do I need to do? So first, we clarified the vision, then we clarified the actions to get to the final vision, to get to the Z. So we knew, okay, well, once you have the idea, how do you get to your idea? Or once you have your goal, how do you get to your goal? So we broke it down, and
right.
You make. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
okay.
You make
My apologies. You make a clear action plan. So we know, we break it down into measurable, realistic steps where it doesn't feel too overwhelming, something that we know we can achieve, and then slowly but surely we get through them. And then lastly, we while we're going through these steps, we figure out there are always some challenges and barriers that we need to get through. Everyone has their own either family limitations or financial limitations or personal beliefs that we have of thinking we can only achieve so much. So then we address those depending on what the client needs, and we try and break through them and continue to move forward.
So basically, you are putting order in their mind and laying out the certain procedures so the transition gets smooth.
That's exactly it, yeah. The whole process when we are addressing all of this is perfect example, like you're setting. We're creating order. People who are dealing with transition, they are thinking in a mindset of what used to be, and you're trying to create what is, what the new is. So it creates a lot of chaos in your mind. And so what we try and remind the client is, if you create that order in your life, you will have your answers, and it will be easy. So if there are things that you can do to make your decision-making in your favor or just that much simpler, then don't hesitate to do it, because then the next step will be a lot easier for you to get through.
Yeah, so that acknowledgement of okay, I am in transition and I don't need to panic. It's something that is going to happen to me regardless, because it's a condition of life. And
yeah.
that simple recognition move you out of the panic and give you a little bit of more clarity on the steps, which for me is actually the second step, where you are recognizing perhaps that you need the skills to first make order in your head, second to perhaps learn a new kind of skills in order to deliver your new step. And we don't always know that what the next step is. So the transitions are loaded with that fear of the unknown, and then we try to hold back into what we know, or we trying to sabotage the transition by going back into skills that are old, or they are below of our capacity. Or below our capacity, and we are not actually delivering the full potential of the transition. So that is something we need to be aware that, okay, we can, one way to cope with that chaos and with that fear is that we try to shelter ourselves in our old belief systems and shelter ourselves in skills that are below our capacity. And that's precisely the opposite of what the flow of transition wants from us. Mm-hmm. Life naturally wants us in period of transition to excel, to reshape ourselves and to transmute ourselves into something that we, in another skin. And so that is the first, for me, very powerful step where you are really embracing the transition fully, and we are able then to support it with more clarity, with more directness. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
What do you feel that, or what in your experience in your practice, what do you see that people struggle the most in the transition period, in that first stage of transition?
The reoccurring theme that we notice is actually the fear of feeling something. Everyone that we've worked with or that I've talked with, even non-clients, when I discuss transition with them, they're afraid of feeling something, either whether it be, nervousness, shyness, not having the answer, so feeling inadequate. They don't want to feel that feeling, and so they resort back to the comfort, like you're saying, into the old habits, knowing the skills that they have, instead of looking forward and saying, okay, this is a feeling that I have, but I can work through it and expand and grow from that.
Yeah,
so
right.
That's
so
what we
that
notice.
that sense of letting go of the old is unsettled. You're leaving your comfort zone, but is really a requirement of the transition to be bold, to have that sense of courage that, okay, I don't know, and if I pretend to know, I am overriding life. And that sense of fear that we can eat us and sabotage a more powerful and positive, rejuvenating aspect of life, which is transitions. So it's that unknowing part. I also found, go ahead.
No, that's good.
Yeah, I also found that after they have complete that first stage of recognizing that, okay, I am in transition, I need new skills, I need to be clear, and I need certain courage to reshape myself, then I found it quite powerful when people take the time and pause and wait. So the decision is not made out of the head or their own plan or in point of reference of what they know. Is something that is completely fresh, and it only will come from the source of the heart, from the source of life itself. And the requirement that I see as a second step in the transition is just to pause. It's the moment of taking a retreat. It's the moment to let life take a little bit of breath in. So you are not making the transition completely. Is to trust that, okay, there is me in transition and there is life transmuting through me and facilitating to me that new way of perceiving. So I found it that people have much more plasticity in their transition when they take the time of their habits and their way of thinking, and they give life space to shape. What do you think about that stage?
I actually very much agree with that. Actually, the best description I can give is myself in my own transition of the day that I decided to change from that past career to this new career. I took a moment and just sat with it, and it actually took me a long time, maybe up to a year, to actually start to move, because I was now not only accepting the change, but now it was sinking in. That's the way I was able to describe it. I was just letting it all sink in, and I was digesting the idea. And possibly my way of interpreting it was just trying to figure out, okay, now that I've made this decision, what's my next step? So I was trying to kind of figure out, okay, well, I know that I'm going to make this shift, and I know I'm going to start something new, so how am I going to approach it? So like you're saying, I just let life be. I was digesting what I needed to, and then the day that I felt I had enough self-awareness of what was to come next, that is the day I decided to take that next step and really started to get the motion going. And I'm noticing that in the clients when I'm talking to them, potential clients, I'm meeting with them, and we're discussing the idea of their transition, and they're grasping it, and they're really understanding it. And through the conversations, you give them ideas, and then I've noticed that they take some time off before they even get back in touch with me to see if we should proceed or not. I normally send them a questionnaire to kind of get a feel of what they're doing, but at the same time, it allows them to see what they're getting into. So a lot of them come back to me and they said, I didn't forget you. I'm just, taking all your questions in and really digesting them to see how I'm going to approach this.
Yeah, and that's something that because of in the first stage, what is requiring that awareness and courage and boldness, and in this second stage, it's more like laying back, it's more passive, it's more kind of receptive mode. Then sometimes we fail in that shift or shift within the transition on the stages in the transition. So that sense of I found it difficult for people to move from that go mind to a more allowing and really partnering up with life, that is acknowledging that, okay, I don't need to do everything. There is something within me that is preparing me to move ahead. So that passive aspect of the transition can be challenging by itself. And some people say, well, I am taking it easy or something. So the first high that we get from, okay, I am divorcing and I am getting free and so on, and then it happens like, now what? And then so they don't really take the length of time that they need. It could be from 3 days for 10 days, 6 months, depending of the depth of the transition and the reshaping of that. Mm-hmm. So it's so primer to really acknowledge that step in the transition, especially, let's say, if you're moving from the dual part of the mind, which is based in action and duality, and you are moving into the surrendering and the freedom of partnering up with the flow, then it really is a surrendering moment. And life prepares us in all these little transitions that occurs in different stages of our life. It prepares us for that final big shift of transmutation, where you are actually leaving your way of human into an enlightenment state. So as a seeker, it's important to learn and exercise in each little transition that courage and that surrendering. And then I was third stage. Mm-hmm.
I would like to add. I find, just to add to what you're saying, it's very important that people are aware of this, and because our society is so fast and the way the world is going right now, that moment of just surrendering and being with that, I find that people don't know what to do with it, and they're asking often the question of, well, I should be doing this right now, and that's where they get stuck, instead of just realizing that is part of the process and that it's okay for them not to act right now.
Yeah, correct. And the last part of the transition, I will say, that is when you are out of that retreat, on that pause, then is to actually act, is to actually do the thing. And I will say that that will be the easier part of the transition, because you are loaded with enthusiasm, you are loaded with new life, you are loaded with you're refreshed. So it's a matter of just implementing that, as you say, with order, with consistency, and with commitment. So that will be unfolding naturally for you. Situations present itself. Circumstances are playing out. So really the effortlessness of you partnering up with life, it becomes a great potential and very invigorating part of the transition. So do you see that in your clients? That
oh yes, definitely.
Definitely.
Again,
yeah.
For myself, I find that the best, what you're describing is exactly what I lived with my own experience, is the day that I digested it all. That's my best way of describing it. And I had this shift, and it was an internal shift. I don't know what it was, but it was that sensation of, okay, let's do it, I'm ready. And that's what I try and remind my clients. They're like, well, why? I'm afraid. I don't know. I should be moving. I want to get it fixed now. Why isn't it happening now? When I'm really saying, you'll have that feeling, and it'll happen when you're ready. Right now, you're just not 100% ready. And don't be afraid. It'll come. Don't be impatient. It will come. And I'm noticing in my clients the same thing. You can start to see the readiness in them. And then when they do, everything just blossoms and grows and expands from there.
Yes, it's wonderful that. Well, we can much talk about transitions and personal approaches on that, how different personalities approach transition. Unfortunately, our time is almost off, but I want to thank Amy for the time, and any one of you who are interested in talk to Annie. She can be reached at www.letstalkcoach.com. Also in our page, I have all the information about her beautiful work with her partner, Gillette.
Carmen.
What is yes, with Carmen. So
yes.
These two powerful women are there to support transitions in that. I thank you again, Amy, and will be very, very have my best wishes for you and your work. And for you guys, Altitude will be in holidays in the month of July, and it will come back in August. Meantime, have a wonderful summer, and I will talk to you the 1st of August. Until then.
Thank you so much.
Join us every Thursday at 11 a.m. for another program of Altitude.